Hey guys, my name is Vishal and I welcome you all to this session by Edureka. In today's session, we would be discussing yet another interesting topic that touches up on cloud computing domain. Today's topic of discussion is Azure IoT. Before we move any further, let us take a look at the agenda or the offerings of today's session first. So I would start this session by talking about what is IoT, that is Internet of Things. Moving further, we would understand what is IoT on Azure, that is a cloud platform. Then we'll talk about Azure IoT components and their uses. And finally, I would finish this session by discussing or giving you a slide or a smaller demo. I believe this agenda is clear to you guys. So let's not waste any time and quickly get started. So what exactly is IoT? Now, IoT has many definitions. I mean, because the domain is so wide, or I should say, there are so many things that you can do with IoT that to define it in one single way would not make a lot of sense. I mean, you can think of it as an approach that lets you collect data. It is an approach that makes your devices smarter. It is an approach that basically helps you connect devices. Now, to keep it simple, we all are social beings, or most of us are definitely. I mean, we need some social contact, right? So, what we do is we basically communicate with people. We tell them what we feel like, or what is happening in our day to day life, or we take in inputs from them in similar manner, right? So, in a way, we are actually exchanging information. We are actually exchanging data. What about devices? I mean, devices do store data, they do have information that might be useful to human beings, but how do you collect this data? How do you make use of this data? Well, yes, you have devices that let you collect data for you. There are devices that are smart and they do a lot of things that you'd want them to do. But what internet has done is it has enabled you to connect these devices with each other. And that has actually simplified the process of collecting data and also making these devices interactive and social in one way or the other. I'm sure this is not making a lot of sense for now. Let us move further and try to understand this topic a little more. Now, when you talk about the rise of internet, what you would notice is these days there is a lot of data that is generated online. I mean, the amount of cell phones being used these days, the amount of applications that run on these cell phones, the shopping you do, the food you order, the remaining stuff, the browsing and stuff like that you do, and the amount of work that you do here. I mean, it generates huge amount of data. Now, this data can be very useful. I mean, you also have analytics, data science in the market these days. And what it does is it basically lets you collect this data and use this data in a number of ways to serve the customers better, to basically make better medicines, to make better machinery and stuff like that, right? So that is what data science has done, and that is what internet has done. But what this also means is a burden on human beings to collect this data. I mean, you need some way or the other to collect this data. And when it comes to human beings, yes, we are the sharpest beings on the earth, but the problem here is the human accuracy. At times it can go down or it cannot be as accurate as the machine is. So you need to create machines that let you collect this data. So what internet has done here is, if this data is huge and the amount of data that is being generated is huge because of internet, it has also given you a solution. The solution is Internet of Things. What it does is it lets you connect different devices together. And by doing that, these devices are smart enough and they can collect this data for you, so that your only job is to go through this data or use this data. And that is why these devices are becoming more smarter day by day. Now, to give you a very simple example, if I go home and basically what I do is I remove my wallet, I remove my bike or car key, and I keep it on the desk that is close to my door, or I rather hang it on the hanger that is there. So what mostly happens is when I leave my home, there are chances that I forget my key, I forget my wallet, right? What if there were smart devices that would tell me that I have forgotten my key once I leave the door? Wouldn't that be nice? So that can be done. I mean, you have sensors these days. You can have sensors on these devices, on the keys, on the wallets that you work on, or on the wallet that you have. So basically, what these devices would do is they would basically sense the fact that you have moved out of the house. And once you cross a particular range, probably what it would do is they would throw in an alarm with some device that you have with you. So now this seems little impractical, but or seems little complicated to do. But the simple achievement out of this is you get notified no sooner you miss out certain things at home. And this application can be used on the longer run to solve different kinds of problems. Now, this is one of the applications of IoT. Internet can be used here, different sensors can be used here, different devices can be used to connect with each other. Now, this was about hardware devices. Basically, you can connect applications with each other which reside on particular hardware. So this is one very basic application. There are a lot of things that you can do with IoT. So as you can see in the image, what IoT is doing is it is basically helping you connect different applications, different businesses, different services together. And the fact that all these things are connecting with each other, there is live data with you, and that would help you solve a lot of problems. I mean, you can do better weather predictions with IoT. You can do better traffic predictions with IoT. You can better figure out as in what kind of data a person is using. You can figure out what kind of exercise routines a person follows. So all these things can be dealt with IoT. You can prepare better medicines. You can gauge how basically medicines are administered and what kind of effect are they having on that particular individual. So IoT is a great boon for humankind if used wisely. So that is what IoT is. I believe by now you've understood what IoT is. Let us move further and try to understand the other topics that we mentioned in the agenda. So guys, next on this list is IoT on Azure. I mean, why should you use IoT or Internet of Things on a platform like Microsoft Azure? First, let us try to understand Azure in a bit. Now, when you talk about Azure, I can think of this power consumption analogy. I normally use these in my sessions. So let me just throw in some light on these topics so that we can understand what Azure is. So basically, think of Azure as a platform that basically provides you with services that help you solve various computation, storage, and application development issues. How does it do that? If you take a look at this power consumption analogy, what you would notice is when electricity flows into your house, you basically consume the electricity, and at the end of the month you pay the bill for the units of electricity that you've consumed, right? You do not have to worry about how does this electricity flow in, who manages it. And once this electricity goes down, all you have to do is you have to call the power suppliers and they take care of it, right? You do not have to worry about managing the units you've consumed. All you have to do is take a look at the bill and pay the bill. So basically what is happening is someone else is taking care of all the things that are related to power consumption. All you do is you outsource this work to someone else. You use the services and pay for the services that you've used. It is very simple and very realistic in real life. When you talk about software development, there are a lot of constraints that one has to face. I mean, buying servers, hosting applications, maintaining, monitoring those applications. What if you were given solutions, ready to use solutions, where you had to worry about just the data that you have and take or deal with better business insights and stop worrying about all these issues? Wouldn't that be nice? When you talk about Microsoft Azure, it does exactly that for you. It provides you with cloud computing solutions, or it provides you with a platform that solves various issues that are related to your software development. So it is similar to the power consumption. I believe it is making some sense. In this case, your Azure is basically your electricity provider in terms of software services, right? So that is what Microsoft Azure is. It is a cloud platform that provides you with various services that concern computing and software development. And you can actually go ahead and rent these services and use them for a particular time duration when you want to use them. And you can get rid or release those services once you're done using them. So this is what Azure is, and why should you use IoT on Azure? Well, Azure is one of the leading cloud service providers. And that is why when you talk about Azure, what it does is it basically provides you with various integrations, various services that would help you implement IoT services on top of it and with ease. To give you a simple example, now this is an image I directly picked up from Microsoft Azure's website, if I'm not wrong. I would be giving credit to them. Do not worry about that. But this is a very simple example, and this is what it demonstrates. I mean, you have an IoT hub, which is an IoT service that is basically giving data to your stream analytics, which can be visualized by using different Azure tools. Now, when you talk about Azure services, there are services for everything for your data visualization, machine learning, data warehousing, data lakes. You have application creation, PaaS service creation, instance or virtual machine creation, storage, security, and everything is taken care by Azure. So basically, if you have applications that run on Microsoft Azure, you can actually go ahead and apply Internet of Things to it to make them more smarter. And if you do not have applications on Azure, you can actually go ahead and create those using Microsoft Azure, and you can again use IoT on top of it. So yes, if you talk about IoT on Azure, it is a very good choice and a very good option that people can opt for. What all can you do with IoT on Azure? let us take a look at some of the important IoT components on Microsoft Azure. Now, when I say components, you can think of these as services that cater the need of Internet of Things on top of Azure platform. Let us try to understand those. So guys, first and foremost, you have your Azure IoT Central. Now, when you talk about Microsoft Azure, as I've already mentioned, it is a cloud platform. So if you've learned cloud platform to some extent, you have three services. You have infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Now, as you progress with these services, IaaS is basically a service that provides you with basic infrastructure on top of which you can choose everything that you want to do. That means you can basically have a basic layer on top of which you can choose what operating system you want to use, what binaries to use, what applications to run, what programming languages to use. So it is a basic infrastructure that you can have. When you talk about PaaS, it is basically platform as a service where a platform is given to use, where you have ready to use templatized applications. And when you talk about SaaS, it is software as a service where a complete software is given to you on rent, which you can use. Say, for example, Gmail. I mean, you do not have to sit and code Gmail, right? It is a ready to use application. You do not worry about it. I mean, its security, its management, its maintenance, everything is taken care by someone else. So cloud provides you with these kind of services. Now, when you talk about Azure IoT Central, think of it as a SaaS kind of a service. I mentioned Gmail, right? So what it does is it provides you similar services, or it provides you a service that basically lets you create a similar software as a service kind of applications for IoT platforms. So that is what Azure Central is. When you talk about Azure IoT accelerators, it is more of a PaaS kind of a service that lets you create templatized applications or templatized IoT applications, which you can use to create ready to use IoT services. Now, what is the difference between these two? The major difference is now Azure IoT is a SaaS service. That means it would require you to put in lesser efforts. I mean, it is more ready to use kind of a service, just like your Gmail. So it is easy to create, but the disadvantage of this service is it does not give you a lot of customizations. I mean, you cannot go to Gmail and decide to hard code it again, right? You can't. But when you talk about Azure IoT accelerators, it again provides you with templates to create applications, but it is platform as a service. That means it gives you a platform. So this platform, it forms a way or paves a way on which you can actually go ahead and put in your applications, decide what kind of platform, what kind of software you want to run on top of it. So it gives you more flexibility. So it would require more efforts. So it is not easier, but it gives you more flexibility. So yes, these both services basically focus on templatized applications. Third on this list, you have Azure IoT Hub. Now, Azure IoT Hub is a very important service. Basically, what it does is it lets you connect other services and applications. So it forms a central point of communication for all these applications. So when you talk about the first two services, they are kind of dependent on Microsoft Azure IoT Hub to some extent. The other way around is not true. That means Azure IoT Hub is a fairly independent service. What it does, as I've already mentioned, it lets you communicate with other applications and other services. It forms that hub where applications communicate. Then you have Azure Digital Twins and Azure Time Series Insights. Now, these services basically what they do is they let you create models. Yes, they let you create models. And when you talk about digital twins, yes, it works in that way. When you talk about Azure Time Series Insights, basically, if you've learned analytics, you know you're talking about time series. That means how data varies from time to time, like your stock markets, right? I mean, the graph is not constant. It might go up, it might come down. So basically, a series of information that varies as per time is called as time series analysis. Now, when you talk about Azure Time Series Insights, what it does is it gives you insights or lets you build applications that helps you collect real-time data and generate insights out of it. So it is an analytics kind of an application. When you talk about Azure IoT, it helps you in data visualization and for various analytic approaches as well. Azure Sphere and Azure Maps. Now, when you talk about Azure Sphere, basically what it does is it lets you create devices. Those are hardware heavy. I'm not sure whether this is a right term to use. Now, when you talk about IoT, you're also talking about hardware devices that let you connect different sources. Now, when you talk about Azure Sphere, it has a set of devices or classifications which lets you do a lot of IoT things. Like basically, it has its sets of MCUs or microcontrolling units basically that help you in better IoT services. And when you talk about Azure Maps, I've mentioned an application called as knowing the traffic at different locations, tracking your cars and stuff like that. So for that, you need the location of the device, and Azure Maps help you in that aspect of IoT as well. So guys, these are most of the services that Azure IoT has to offer to you. We won't be getting into the details of all these services today. As we move further and we have more sessions on this topic, that is Azure IoT, probably I would be focusing on all these services individually and in a lot more detail. For now, let us just quickly move to the demo part. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly switch into the Azure console, and we are going to go ahead and kind of create a simple Azure IoT hub. So guys, when you talk about Azure IoT, or when you talk about Azure in general, now you have your Azure portal. It provides you with free Azure services for a limited amount of time. If you are completely new to Azure, I would suggest that you actually go ahead and create a free tier account. All you have to do is give in certain details, your credit card or debit card details, and you're good to go. You can have that free tier account in which you have certain free credits. That means you can use these credits to use these services. I mean, these are paid services. So you can use those free credits to practice these services on your own. I would suggest that if you do not have a free tier account, you actually go ahead and create one. Now, in my case, this is a paid account, so I am kind of restricted to using these applications. So let us just go ahead and create a simple Azure IoT Hub first. So guys, this is the console. I mean, you have a number of services, whether you talk about your recently created services, whether you're machine learning, analytics, blockchain, compute, containers. Now, these are different domains that Azure touches upon. Our concern today is Internet of Things. So let's just click on this icon and go to Azure IoT Hub. If you move to these different services, you can actually go ahead and learn a lot about them. This is quick start tutorial, one for IoT Hub as well. So you can know what you can do with all these things or all these services. So when you talk about Microsoft Azure, there are a lot of documentations or a lot of documents that Azure provides you for free. So you can use those documents to understand these services to a lot more detail. So I would suggest that you actually visit their website and take a look at those services as well. Meanwhile, I've moved to this service. As you can see, the subscription is Edureka subscription here. Resource group, I can create one or I can use the existing one. So let us create one. Azure IoT demo 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Guys, these are unique names, so probably you might be forced to give longer names. Let's just say okay. You can choose the location where you want to create this IoT hub. When I say location, what Azure does is it has its data centers in different parts of the world. So you can choose the data center that is close to you, or you can choose the data center that is close to your business. And accordingly, you can take a call on which region do you want your data to based in. Based on that, you can choose a region. There are certain services for which all regions are not available. So you would want to visit those particular services and decide accordingly. In this case, I'm going to stick to West US. I mean, it's a simple application, so I do not want to put in too much effort or time into it. Let's just name our application as in my first IoT hub. It's not available is what it says. Let's say 134422221. Yep, now it is available. So you can just review it first, right? You can go to previous. Actually, you can take a look at the size and the details you want to enter. Pricing tier, it is S1 for me, that is standard one. I won't be getting into the details of pricing. Let's ignore that for now. Cost per month for this device is 1652 INR, that is Indian rupees, and it supports 400 messages basically. Number of units for the hub, for now let it be 1. You can change it accordingly, and you can actually go ahead and decide what tier you want to use again. So let's just move to free tier for now so that we don't get charged a lot. And let us just move ahead and say review and create. So this is the information. This is the subscription. Mine is pay as you go. This is the name, region, and the name. I just go ahead and say create. So guys, creation at times might take a while, not long, but a minute or two. So there you go. The deployment is in progress already. It is giving you all the information that you need. And once it is done, you can avail information on other things as well. Also guys, if you are new to Edureka or to our YouTube videos, I would suggest that we do a lot of stuff. I mean, we have our live sessions mostly on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. We have our podcast sessions as well. You can actually go ahead and visit our podcast channel where one of our associates, he works on great sessions. Then you have live sessions, which I've already mentioned, and there are quite a few other channels like DZone, Medium, channels on IGTV, and other places as well. So our presence on social media is huge. You can stay connected to all these media to learn about new technologies. I mean, we upload content on all these platforms every day, and especially we started with YouTube. So if you are looking for such content on YouTube, like on regular basis, you can actually go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can avail these videos like every day, and also make sure that you click on the bell icon so that you get notified to these videos on regular basis, because there are a lot of resources that I believe would help you in a lot of ways. I would be dropping in the links for the other channels that I mentioned in the description so that you can actually go ahead and probably sign into those channels as well, like Telegram, DZone, IGTV, Medium, etc. As far as this application goes, the process is still underway. Let us just quickly refresh it and see whether the application is created, whether it's up and ready. No, it's still underway. So there you go, guys. The resource is created. You can click on this icon. You can see the information is here. That is, you can have your operation details by clicking on this thing, and you can get the details about it. You can copy the details as well. You can go to the resource as well, which is here. So, and based on this information, you can actually go ahead and decide what kind of access do you want this device to have. Pricing and scaling, all these things can be taken care of. Other information that you need a way to provision millions of devices, go ahead and see how these things work. So guys, this is how you actually go ahead and create a basic IoT hub. In the following sessions that follow this session, probably we'll be creating a lot more content related to these topics, and I believe these topics would help you a lot more. As far as this session goes, guys, I probably believe this is the end of it. Before that, I would suggest that you actually go ahead and delete the resources that you have. You'd have to enter the name of the app that you've created. So let me just go ahead and do that. Hub 123. I've given it a fairly long name, so there you go. Guys, the reason I'm asking you to delete these services is, now this was under the free tier, but probably there are services that would cost you a lot more. And say, for example, if you launch a server and keep it running, so probably you'd be paying a lot of money, and I don't want that to happen. So I would suggest that you always follow this practice where you delete the resources that you've created. And once you do that, it is certain that you won't be charged. Now you can see that if you go to this deployment, the resource won't be found because I've deleted it already. So that's it, guys. As far as this session goes, I would be resting it here and here. Thank you. Bye-bye.